New York's classic rock, Q1043.
Got to tell you about a movie you can now see. It's going to make you crazy. It is called Long Live Rock. That's our theme here at Q104.3, of course. And joining me this morning, the director, Jonathan McHugh, and the producer, Gary Spivack, who is also a promoter. But it made me crazy. It made me crazy. You two are two of the cruelest men on the planet to be releasing this movie, this celebration of concerts and festivals, when that is the very thing that most of us miss most in this pandemic. You are so cruel.
Well, we beg to differ, Shelley. We view it as we've seen this movie play on the big screen when there were festivals, and because there haven't been anything for a year and people are jonesing for it, we figure we're going to be the relief package and we're going to give that to them. So it can cut both ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So it's really a celebration of hard rock. It's really a celebration of metal. It's really a celebration of rock that is kind of on the outside, because there's the rock that is accepted, and then there is the rock that, oh, you have preconceived notions of who likes this music, what the people are like, and it's just insane. It's driven me insane all my years in the business. And actually on our morning show just the other week, we talked to Dee Snider and talk about people who are just not understood at all. I mean, this was a guy who has never done drugs. He does not drink, but everyone just thought the worst of him when he appeared at the Parents Music Resource Council, the hearings on Capitol Hill. They just thought he was a demon, and he was probably the most sober person in the room. That's the kind of preconceived.
Yeah, and that's the perception, and that's what we wanted to kind of demystify, the perception that this music is dark, satanic. These people with their piercings and their long hair and their Metallica t-shirts, they're just like everybody else, except they just like to rock a little harder. I spent my night in Twisted Sister in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, and I've been rocking ever since, and getting to see bands like, growing up listening to great radio in New York and seeing bands like Led Zeppelin and Kiss and Black Sabbath. It's always been in me, and then you move away from it. And then Gary, who's a good friend of mine, we've known each other for 20 years, started booking these great festivals, and we got the idea to make this movie about the passion of this fandom. And, we went to places like Columbus, Ohio, and Louisville, Kentucky, and Sacramento, where Gary has some of these great festivals. And we got a really beautiful slice of life to show these people that they use this music for therapy. They don't go on vacation to the resorts that everybody goes to. They go meet up at these festivals and they commune together
and bond as a family.
Yeah, and the symbiotic relation with the bands and the fans is really special.
The most surprising person that I saw in your film was John Kasich. This is exactly the perfect example. You would not think that this Republican ex-governor who ran, he was fighting for the Republican nomination for president, with Trump. Donald Trump. You do not expect him to be a hard rock metalhead.
Yeah,
that's true.
That was a great get. He was a big fan. He comes to this festival in Columbus every year, and he has music fan. We had the Red Hot Chili Peppers headline one year, and they're brief there. There's a quick excerpt in the film, and he had a glass of red wine on the side of the stage, and it was just me and my partner Danny Wimmer, and the security guy who runs the stage, who is a ball buster. He's seen Metallica and the Chili Peppers and Tool and System of a Down and you name it. That was the biggest celebrity this head of security has ever seen. But all he wanted to do was just watch a great band. So and he said a great thing. Whether you're Republican or a Democrat or independent, once the music hits you, we're one. And that is a great running theme of this film. This family dynamic between the fans and the bands, this community that John talked about, that is just it's very bonding. And I knew it was there as a producer of these festivals, but I didn't know how deep rooted it was until we made this film. How it's such a wonderful and often misunderstood family.
Okay, explain to me why this comes up in study after study, that those who really have the best mental health are people who love hard rock and heavy metal. That explain that, because the perception is just the opposite.
Well, for brilliant study about how this music can be therapeutic, and I think that the music itself, I mean, just the act of headbanging, right, is a very violent, aggressive reaction to music. But when you look at it, it's like people who are very closed, right, and they keep things inside, those are the people that snap, right? But the people that are outward and in their passion and their fandom, I think that's something that we are able to track in the movie, and I think that's my take on it. Gary, what's yours? Because you see it every day.
Yeah, I'll go to Jose Mangan, who's a true ambassador of hard rock and heavy metal out there, and he said this music calms him, where you would think when listening to Metallica or Guns N' Roses, it does the opposite. But for many, it calms them, and John's right, because it's outward. The more you hold things in life, the more repressed and the more just intense you're going to be. The more better out than in, as Shrek once said.
I am speaking to Jonathan McHugh. He is the director of Long Live Rock. It is a celebration of hard rock. It is a celebration of heavy metal festivals. Also with me, producer Gary Spivack, who is actually a promoter. And this film not only is taken from the perspective of fans, following a group of fans who become family, basically, but there are just tons of interviews with artists and a friend of the show from Guns N' Roses, but and he's talked to us about his demons and his alcoholism. I had no idea till I watched your movie, because I didn't read his book, that his pancreas exploded. I mean, my God.
Yeah, and that was interesting because we didn't plan to have that in the movie. We didn't go to that place originally. And when we were making the film, I was very excited because back in the day, I worked with Soundgarden at A&M, and I put them in the movie Basketball Diaries, great New York story, Jim Carroll, to do a song for that. And I hadn't seen Chris Cornell in whatever that was, 15, 20 years. And I was excited about it. And the morning of the festival, Gary called me at 6 o'clock in the morning. He says, Chris Cornell's dead. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, and you got to go. I got to go by. And so we get to the stadium to start interviewing people, and there on the dressing room name is Soundgarden, like it was that fresh. So the first question you have to ask these people that you're about to interview is not, hey man, rock and roll, like it's so great, right? You have to talk about Chris Cornell, even though you're probably not going to use it, but that in a negative, positive way is your icebreaker, right? So we have all this amazing fresh feelings from people like Lars and Jacoby from Papa Roach, and we still didn't plan to use it. And then we were thinking about, well, we should probably interview Linkin Park, and then Chester, 1 year to the day dies, and I was like, Gary, we got to go into this. So I called people like Harold from Music Cares and Jeff Jampol, who manages the estates of The Doors, and Janis Joplin, who does a lot of counseling, and they kind of led us through this segment about this. And then one of our fans in the film, we started looking through footage and realized that she lost 2 brothers and her mother from opioid addiction in Ohio, Cincinnati, I think they live. And it was like, we have to kind of go there. And people like Dorothy, who's a great female rock star, and, they were willing to share their issues. And Duff's story juxtaposed a bunch against the this guy Gilkey, who was in jail and met this correction officer. It's a really beautiful story, and what happened to him and how he should have died. It really becomes one of my favorite moments in the film, the back and forth, and have Duff sharing his story is really powerful.
That had to have been so difficult for you, Gary. I mean, that was when that phone call came, explained what that was like for you when you found out that Chris Cornell had died by suicide.
Yeah, it's in the movie, and it was Soundgarden was to be the Friday night headliner of the festival we had, which was Friday Soundgarden and Sunday Metallica, sold out, 100,000 people. And Thursday morning, I got the call that he took his life in Detroit. The next gig was to be in Columbus. Members were in Columbus, Ohio, in their hotel rooms, sleeping when they found out. So didn't have time to mourn or even reflect. We as promoters, we were in go mode, and we did a intense, loving tribute to Chris, and we got Corey Taylor to step in, who happened to be in town, not performing at the festival, but he was in town because he had a new solo record. I'm sorry, a Stone Sour record, Corey Taylor of Slipknot. So he agreed to do an acoustic performance in front of 40,000 people, unrehearsed, which included Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd and like Knockout Punch. And I think Corey does an amazing job talking about what he went through in mourning Chris Cornell on stage. Governor Kasich was there as well, by the way, with tears running down his eyes. So it was, I think about Chris Cornell every day. And I think people like Duff and Lars, Jacoby, and so many are constantly affected. You see Taylor, the Pretty Reckless, who still to this day has a hard time getting past talking about it. So John's right. We had to address it. It wasn't part of the film. It was a celebration, celebrate the chaos. But it was an important arc to address. And I'm so glad we did.
That must have been so difficult for you, because here you were in mourning yourself. Someone you knew, someone you loved had just died, and you had to keep this festival going, and you had to fill the bill, and people were turning you down because they couldn't handle it.
There was a couple, including Jerry Cantrell, of who we called to maybe walk on stage, and he's like, I can't walk on stage with a guitar, and no, thank you. I get it, love you, but can't do it. Many, and then we just ended up doing. We went the other direction and did a video tribute and a montage, and again, Corey Taylor stepped to the plate and crushed it. But what is not captured in the film, including the death of a Hall of Fame rock star, was there were storms all weekend at that festival. Not one, but 3 evacuations that we had to deal with, including one we had to make a call about 40 minutes before Metallica was to hit the stage, which we did not evacuate. And there's footage. I mean, we literally rode the lightning with Metallica, which made that performance even that much more special and insane, as John remembers too. That was a hell of a weekend, Shelley.
Oh my God. Speaking of Metallica, one of the best hospital commercials I saw as the pandemic was at its worst. It was a hospital in Philadelphia, I believed, that used the music Nothing Else Matters in their commercial. And it just hit me so emotionally. I just thought, oh my God, that is the perfect song.
And using that song in the movie was interesting because we had a classical version of that by Apocalyptic originally. And, Jessie, our trauma nurse who does 15-hour days, and the only therapy she has is fishing in West Virginia and crowd surfing. And I was like, man, it would be really beautiful to see some like tranquil fishing. We had some classical in there originally, and Gary's like, too slow. And I was like, all right, what about if we use a classical version of Nothing Else Matters. He's like, that's good. And then when we went to put it in and we talked to Metallica about it, because we didn't want to ask for two masters, you know, that was like, we thought it was greedy, because we opened the film with a huge Metallica piece and they were like, well, yeah, it's good, but why don't you use our master? We're like, oh, that would be amazing. So that piece for me is just, because the song is very tranquil, but yet really emotional. And it really captured her so well, because she's a great character.
And we're out of time. Listen, if you miss the festivals and you miss the concerts, you have got to watch Long Live Rock. LongLiveRockMovie.com is how to see it. And I will see you guys, well, figuratively speaking, on the Jim Kerr Rock and Roll Morning Show tomorrow morning, Q104.3.
New York's classic rock, Q104.3.